Okay, today's session will concern the structure of the Sephirot and the meaning behind that. You notice the way they're structured here? There's basically two ways the Sephirot could be structured. One is where they're one below the other. Generally that's referred to as Tohu. And then the way they're organized into columns here, left and right, is referred to as Tikkun. Now the difference between Tikkun and Tohu is that Tohu means that the Sephirot are not cooperating with each other, they're separated. And there's disharmony. In Tohu, there was something called the breakage of the vessels, which means that the light was too strong and the vessels were too small. These are very abstract concepts you have to understand. It's not a bunch of pots and pans and dishes breaking or anything like that. But it's a concept of, let's say, a person sometimes that they are trying to learn something. They're taking on a subject, but it's too much for them. It's too much for their brain to handle, and they could break down from trying to understand something that's too hard for them. So the light is too strong, the vessel is too small. It also refers to the idea of conflict, because the Sephirot were not getting along with each other. You have Chesed is kindness, severity, Gvura, they're conflicting with each other. So this is generally referred to Tohu and related to Esav in the Torah, the brother of Yaakov. And then you have the concept of including one and the other. You notice here that they're not one below the other. It's called Tikkun. And you have them in columns. So you have Cather is on top, then there's Dat and Ferret and Yesod and Malchut in one straight line. And you have on the right side Chokmah, Chesed, and Netzach, and Bina, Gvura, and Hod. Now there's a similarity between Chokmah, Chesed, and Netzach. It doesn't mean that Chesed is created from the Chokmah, but there's a similarity in them that Chokmah sort of leans towards the side of Chesed, of more of expansion. And Chesed is expansion and giving, and Netzach has to do with the flow of activity and action. So there's a similarity in that column. For example, on the other side you have Bina, which is the idea of breaking down and understanding what you get from Chokmah, and then followed by Gvura, which is similar to Bina, because actually the Gvurot, or the severities, come from Bina. And that Bina is the idea of separating things and breaking things down, analyzing things. And Gvura is similar to that because it's a restrictive influence. And the Hod is related to passive action, more holding yourself back from doing something, waiting. So you see that there's a similarity in the what you call kavim on the left and the right, and there's a similarity also in the middle one. Now Cather, crown, you notice here is on top. Now you notice that dot in the middle is blocked out there. Now that means that when Cather is counted, dot is not counted. So now in Cather there are two aspects. There's the inner part of Cather, which is called Atik Yomin, which is ancient, literally translated as ancient of days. And that is right below that. And that is referring basically to is related to the inner part of Cather, which is Atik. When Dat is counted, it's referring to the inner part of Cather as Atik, and the inner part of Cather, and the Cather part here would not be counted. You would not see the circle on the top. Now then there's the outer part of Cather. So when the outer part of Cather is counted, it will be counted. The dot here will be blacked out. The outer part of Cather has to do with its relation to the world, because Atik means it's removed from the world, and Arich is the lower part of Cather, which means that it's connected to the world. Now, in Kabbalah, in the deeper sense, you have in the higher way of looking at it that the light which was before the Tzimtzum, you have two levels. Before the contraction, the idea of Atik is the idea of the light which was not revealed to the outside. It was only innerly revealed. And Arich would be the light which is, it's called Alat Haratzon, which means the will and the projection, the measuring out, or Hashara, into what's going to be in the world. It's actually not revealed in the world yet, but it's connected toward the idea of revelation in the world. Those are the more sublime aspects of the Cather. So when you count the dot here in the middle, when you don't black it out, then it means that we're referring to the inner part of Cather, that we're receiving from the inner part of Cather, because the inner part of Cather is called Antu Chad. You are one, below bechushban, but you are not counted. So that means you don't see it here. So you wouldn't see that top Cather there. You'd only see the dot. And you see the dot is related to the ferret, which the ferret actually is a very important Sephirot, because it's related to it's the in-between between Chesed and Gvura. It's related to the four-letter name of Hashem, Havaya. Here, see, the four-letter name of God. See, it's a little rubbed out, this thing, but you see there's four letters, and that is the essential name of God. And that's related to Tiferet, see. So I just wanted a general understanding here of how the Sephirot are organized, and the difference between Tohu and Tikkun. So Tikkun would be related to harmony, and one sphere to be included in the other sphere, where there's harmony. Whereas Tohu is the idea of where one can't stand the other, and you had the breakage of the vessels. Now the breakage of the vessels is a concept that the light was too strong, but the breakage of the vessels only took place in the midot. You see, on the side you have here Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Chesed, Gvura, and you have Netzach, Chod, all those Sephirot, those six. The breakage of the vessels affected them, but they didn't affect what you call the mochin. They didn't affect the bina and the chachma on top there. But there was a downfall in the. There was some effect on the intellectual aspect as well. But the basic breakage of the vessels, it's a concept that sounds. It's not a bunch of dishes breaking. It's kind of a disharmony. That's remembered as a kind of disharmony and a disconnection somehow. So Tikkun is related to in Kabbalah the Shem Ma. That's 45. The Gematria. There's different ways of combining Hashem's name, the four-letter name of Hashem. Remember here. You can phonetically spell it out in different ways, you see, using vowels and letters. And there are four ways that it comes out to number 45, 63, 72, and 52. So when we're referring to 45, we're referring ad to, which is the numerological value of man, and that means tikkun. And it's referring to chachma. But the breakage of the vessels has to do with the numerological value of 63, which is same sag, and that's related to bina. And anyway, we'll leave it for now, and we'll come back to it some other time, and with more explanations and more discourses. Happy Purim.